The last thing Travis Morgan expected on a Tuesday morning was to be elbow-deep in a broken-down Lexus on the side of the road, while his 6-year-old son, Noah, sat in the passenger seat of his beat-up pickup, swinging his legs and humming to the radio. Travis wiped his hands on his jeans and leaned into the open hood. "You said it just died," he asked, glancing at the woman standing beside him. She wore navy blue scrubs, a messy ponytail, and frustration all over her face. "Yeah," she sighed. "It was fine 1 second, then just nothing." "I have to be at the hospital in 20 minutes. You a nurse?" he asked, reaching for his toolbox from the truck bed. "Yep, ER shift." She gave him a weak smile. "Name's Gianna Mitchell." "Travis," he said, nodding. "And that's my son, Noah." Noah gave her a small wave through the truck window, and she waved back with a soft grin. "Well, Gianna, you're in luck. I used to be a mechanic before," he hesitated. "Before I started doing odd jobs." He didn't explain the why. He didn't need to. The tired look in his eyes, the faded flannel shirt, the stack of overdue bills in the glove box, those things said enough. "I really appreciate this," she said, her voice more genuine now. "I wasn't sure what I was going to do." "Let me see what I can do," he muttered, leaning in. 10 minutes later, he had the car running again. "Bad connection on your battery terminal," he said, shutting the hood. "Temporary fix, you'll want to get it looked at." Gianna looked at him like he'd just saved her life. "I owe you big time," he shrugged. "Just glad I could help." She opened her purse, but he shook his head. "Don't worry about it." "No, really," she said. "Let me at least buy you a coffee or something. There's a diner near the hospital. I go there after every shift." Travis hesitated, glancing at Noah. "I've got to pick him up from after-school care later. But maybe tomorrow," Gianna smiled. "Tomorrow, then." She climbed into her Lexus and drove off, leaving behind the faint scent of vanilla and something floral. Travis stood there watching her go, a strange flutter in his chest. The next afternoon, Travis and Noah sat in a corner booth at the diner. Noah was coloring a superhero while Travis nursed a coffee, unsure if Gianna would actually show. She walked in 10 minutes later, still in scrubs, her cheeks pink from the cold. "You came," she said, sliding into the booth. "You invited me," he replied, trying not to stare too obviously. Fair point. They talked about work, about Noah's obsession with dinosaurs, about her long ER shifts, and his string of handyman jobs trying to pay off Noah's medical bills from last year's surgery. She listened. Not the polite kind of listening, real listening. When he told her about how his ex walked out 2 years ago, how he'd been trying to keep everything together since, Gianna didn't flinch or give him a pity-filled look. She just nodded. "That's a lot to carry," she said softly. "I'm managing. You're doing more than that." He stared at her, caught off guard. "You don't even know me." Gianna looked at Noah, then back at him. "I know enough." The next few weeks passed in a blur of small moments. Gianna started dropping by the diner on her way home. Sometimes she brought Travis leftovers from the hospital cafeteria. Sometimes she brought stickers for Noah. Other times, they just sat in his truck outside her apartment, talking until she could barely keep her eyes open. She laughed at his dry humor. He liked the way she looked at him, like he wasn't broken. Like maybe he was more than a guy barely scraping by. But everything tilted the night Noah had a coughing fit so bad it turned his lips blue. Travis sped to the hospital with his son in the back seat, wheezing, crying, terrified. He burst through the ER doors, clutching Noah to his chest. "Help, please," the nurses rushed forward. Gianna appeared from down the hall like lightning, eyes wide. "Travis," he can't breathe, he choked out. She took Noah gently from his arms, calling out orders to the staff like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Within minutes, they had him in a room, oxygen mask on, vitals being taken. Travis paced outside, fists clenched, heart pounding. Gianna came out 20 minutes later, her expression calm. "He's okay," she said. "It was a respiratory flare-up. We've got him stable." Travis nearly collapsed with relief. "Thank God, you can see him," she added, touching his arm. He looked at her hand, then up into her eyes. "Thank you." "I don't know what I'd do without you," she smiled. "You don't have to." The next day, when they discharged Noah, the nurse at the front desk handed Travis a folder. "These are the billing details." Travis opened it and froze. The total was more than he made in 6 months. He stared at the number, throat tightening. There was no way. He couldn't afford this. Not again. He walked to the billing office, folder in hand, panic rising in his chest. He needed a payment plan, something? Travis, he turned. Gianna stood there, not in scrubs this time, but a tailored black coat and heels. "I didn't know you were still here," she said, glancing at the folder in his hands. "I was just trying to figure out how I'm supposed to pay for this," he muttered. She looked at the paper, then back at him. "Come with me," she said. They walked through a restricted hallway until they reached a sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows. The name on the door read, Gianna Mitchell, CEO. Travis stopped cold. "Wait, this is your office," she turned to face him. "Yeah, you're not just a nurse," she winced. "I didn't lie, I'm a nurse, I just also own the hospital." He stared at her, stunned. "You're the reason this place exists. My grandfather started it. I run it now. I still work shifts because I love it, but yeah. It's mine." He looked down at the bill in his hands. "And I've been bringing you reheated diner pie and cheap coffee." "I liked the pie," she said, stepping closer. "And I liked the guy who fixed my car without asking for a dime." He blinked. "You're a millionaire," she nodded. "And you're the only guy I've met in a long time who looked me in the eye and didn't see a dollar sign. I can't let you pay for his treatment." "I already did. It's handled." "Gianna," she stepped even closer. "You helped me when you didn't have to. You showed up for me when you didn't even know me. Let me show up for you." His voice cracked. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," she whispered. "Just let me be there." Travis looked into her eyes, the woman who owned the hospital he could never afford, who sat with him in a diner booth, who made his son laugh, who made him feel like he could breathe again. And for the first time in years, he let himself hope. Travis stood outside the hospital's glass doors, the cold air biting through the flannel shirt he hadn't bothered to replace in over a year. He stared at the crumpled packet in his hand, the one with Noah's discharge papers, and exhaled slowly. Somewhere above him, city lights blinked against the night sky, but his mind was still in that office. Still hearing Gianna's voice, calm and certain, cutting through his panic like a lifeline. He didn't know how to process any of it. The woman who'd sat beside him in a booth, scraping pie crust off her plate and teasing him about his ancient truck, was the same one who had just covered a bill that would have wrecked him, and she hadn't even blinked doing it. A car horn startled him. He turned to see a sleek silver sedan pull up along the curb. Gianna was behind the wheel, her hair down this time, face almost unreadable. "You look like you're trying to fight gravity," she said as he approached. "I don't know whether to thank you or run for the hills. You could start with getting in the car. It's freezing." He hesitated, glancing back at the hospital doors one last time before climbing into the passenger seat. The heat was already on, warm air brushing over his chilled fingers. "I thought you said that Lexus was a disaster," he muttered. Gianna kept her eyes on the road as she pulled away. "It is. This one's from the garage downstairs. I don't like driving it, it's too quiet." He didn't respond right away. The silence stretched just long enough to feel uncomfortable until she finally said, "You're mad." "No," he stared out the window. "I'm just not used to needing help. And especially not from someone who can make a week's salary disappear over a lunch break." "I didn't help you because I think you're weak," she said. "I helped you because I care. You barely know me." She pulled to a stop at a red light, headlights from the other lanes washing over her face. "Then tell me something I don't know," she said. "Tell me something real." Travis swallowed. "Noah's school called last month. They're recommending speech therapy. He still whispers half his words. His lungs are strong now, but it's like he's afraid to take up space." Gianna didn't look away. "You blame yourself. I wasn't enough. I should have caught it sooner, done more." The light turned green. She didn't move. "You stayed up with him every night when he couldn't breathe. You worked jobs no one wanted to keep food on the table. That's more than most parents do with a full support system." He looked at her, something flickering behind his eyes. "Why are you doing this?" She finally stepped on the gas. "Because I've spent too long around people who take without giving anything back. And then you showed up with oil-stained hands and a kid who looks at you like you hung the moon. It made me wonder if I've been looking in the wrong direction all this time." They rode the rest of the way in silence. When she pulled up to his place, the porch light was flickering. He reached for the door handle, then paused. "You want to come in?" Gianna glanced toward the house. "Only if you've got something stronger than cafeteria coffee." Travis chuckled for the first time in days. I've got a tin of cocoa that expired last year, that's about it. Perfect, she said. Inside, Noah was asleep in the small bedroom off the kitchen. Travis checked on him first, brushing a hand over his forehead before quietly shutting the door. Gianna stood awkwardly near the counter, eyeing the mismatched furniture and cracked tile. This place hasn't changed since I was a kid, he said, flicking on the kettle. Same stove, same leaky faucet. She leaned against the wall, arms folded. You grew up here, moved back in after my dad passed, couldn't afford anything else. I would have never guessed, she said. You carry yourself like someone who built something from scratch. I built survival, that's not the same, but it matters. He handed her a chipped mug filled with cocoa. No marshmallows, you'll have to suffer. She took a sip, grimaced, then laughed. I've had worse. They sat at the table, the only sound the whistle of wind against the windows. Gianna looked around, then asked, Do you ever plan on leaving this place? Travis didn't answer right away. I used to have plans, a garage of my own. A house with a backyard big enough for Noah to run without coughing. What happened? Life, and then bills, and then more bills. She watched him closely. But if you could, would you still want it? He nodded slowly. Yeah, I would. She set her mug down. Then maybe you should start thinking about how to get there, not why you can't. He looked at her, really looked, and something shifted. You make it sound like it's that simple. It's not. But it's possible. You always talk like you're not afraid of anything. I'm afraid of plenty, Gianna said. I just got good at hiding it. He leaned forward. What scares you? She hesitated. Letting someone in. And finding out they only wanted the surface. I'm not interested in surface, he said, voice low. Not with you. She stood suddenly, reaching for her coat. I should go. He rose too. Did I say something wrong? No. She glanced toward the hallway where Noah slept. You said exactly what I needed to hear. That's why I should go. He followed her to the door. She turned before stepping outside. I'm throwing a fundraiser this weekend. Black tie thing. The hospital board insisted. Sounds fancy. It is, painfully. But I want you there. Travis raised an eyebrow. You want me to wear a suit? I want you to meet the people who think money is the only thing worth admiring, she said, and I want them to see what real strength looks like. He looked down at his work boots, then back at her. I don't own anything with a tie. Then I'll take care of it. You mean you'll buy me a suit, a rental, she said. I'm not that presumptuous, he smiled, this time without hesitation. All right. I'll go. Gianna leaned up and pressed a kiss to his cheek, soft, fleeting, but enough to leave him frozen in place. See you Saturday, she said, then disappeared into the night. Travis stood there long after she'd gone, hand still on the doorknob, heart pounding. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't look like a wall he couldn't climb. It looked like a door. And it was starting to open. Travis had never worn anything like the suit that was delivered to his front porch Friday night. It came in a garment bag with a handwritten note clipped to the zipper that simply said, Try not to punch anyone. G. The jacket was charcoal gray, slim cut, and tailored better than anything he'd ever owned. He had no idea how she'd guessed his measurements so precisely, but the thing fit like it was made for him. The shoes shiny leather, not a scuff in sight, looked like they cost more than his entire paycheck that week. He stared at himself in the mirror for a long time, Noah watching from the bed, brow furrowed. Do I look weird? Travis asked. You look like a dad who's going to a spy meeting, he laughed, ruffling his son's hair. Close enough. Travis had arranged for a neighbor to stay with Noah just for the evening, a retired nurse named Miss Loretta, who doted on the boy like he was her own grandson. She waved him off with a knowing look and a warm, don't forget to breathe. The car Gianna sent wasn't a cab or a rideshare. It was a black town car with a driver who called him Mr. Morgan and held the door like Travis was someone important. The event was held at a downtown hotel with gold-paneled elevators and chandeliers that looked like they belonged in a museum. As soon as he stepped into the lobby, he felt like a pair of dusty boots walking across a marble floor. Guests in gowns and tuxedos glided past him, sipping champagne and laughing at things he didn't understand. Then he saw her. Gianna stood at the top of the grand staircase, wearing a deep cobalt gown that clung to her like it had been sewn onto her skin. Her hair was swept into a loose twist, with a few strands framing her face. But it wasn't the dress that made his breath catch, it was the way she looked at him. Like she didn't care about the glittering room or the photographers near the entrance. She only saw him. "You clean up better than I expected," she said when he reached her. Travis adjusted his tie, which he'd only managed to fasten after watching 3 online tutorials. "You're not so bad yourself," she laughed softly, then slipped her arm through his. "Come on. I want you to meet a few people." The ballroom was already buzzing. Waiters moved like clockwork between tables, and a string quartet played something elegant in the corner. Travis kept his shoulders straight, aware of every eye that turned their way. She led him to a group near the center, men in tailored suits and women with diamonds the size of grapes. One of them, a man with silver hair and a pinched expression, raised an eyebrow as they approached. "Gianna," he said. "You're late." "Worth it," she replied. "This is Travis Morgan." The man didn't offer a handshake. "The contractor, actually," she said, her voice light but firm. "He's someone I trust, and if you're smart, you will too." Travis said nothing, but the man's dismissal didn't sting the way it might have weeks ago. He wasn't here to impress anyone. He was here because Gianna wanted him to be. After a few more introductions, most of them polite but stiff, Gianna pulled him toward a quieter corner near the terrace doors. "You all right?" she asked. "I feel like I'm one wrong move from being escorted out." She stepped closer, her voice low. "And yet you're the only one in this room who actually makes me feel like I can breathe." He looked at her, uncertain. "You do this kind of thing all the time." "Too often," she said. "And every time it feels like I'm playing a role. Tonight is the first time I haven't had to pretend." They were interrupted by a short man with thick glasses and a clipboard who whispered something to Gianna. She nodded, then turned back to Travis. "They want me to give a speech." "5 minutes tops. Will you be okay? I'll find a wall to lean against." She hesitated before heading toward the stage, touching his hand briefly. As she spoke, Travis watched the transformation unfold. She was commanding, calm, unshakable. She spoke about the hospital's mission, about expanding services, about making care accessible. But every time her eyes flicked toward him in the crowd, it felt like she was anchoring to something real. When the applause died down, she returned to him and slipped her hand into his. "Come with me." They stepped out onto the terrace, where the sounds of the city hummed softly below. The air was cool but not cold, and the string lights strung above cast a warm glow across the stone floor. Gianna turned to face him, her voice quieter now. "I've been thinking about what you said. About wanting something more for Noah, for yourself. I wasn't fishing for anything." "I know," she said. "That's why it matters." He looked out over the skyline. "I used to think people like you lived on another planet. One I'd never touch. And now I'm standing on your balcony wearing a suit I didn't pay for, wondering if I'm dreaming." "You're not," she said. "And you don't owe me anything for being here, but if you'll let me, I want to help." He turned to her slowly. "You already have. Not just with bills. I'm talking about the garage. The land near the industrial park just went up for sale. I know someone who can help with permits. I could invest." Quietly. Travis stiffened. "I don't want to be your project." "You're not," she said, her gaze steady. "You're someone I believe in, someone who's been doing everything alone for too long. Let me be part of it." He stepped back, frustration flickering across his face. "If I say yes, what does that make me? Just another guy who got lucky because he dated the right woman." Gianna's voice didn't rise. "It makes you someone who finally stopped refusing a hand that wasn't trying to pull you down." Everything in him warred against the idea, pride, fear, the years of doing it all himself. But beneath all that was something else. Something quieter but stronger, wanting to build something. Not just for Noah, but for himself. He exhaled. "I don't know how to do this." She stepped closer, her hands brushing his lapels. "You don't have to, we'll figure it out." Travis looked at her, the city lights reflected in her eyes. Then he leaned in, hesitant for only a moment, and kissed her. It wasn't rushed or tentative. It was sure, real. A man who'd stopped waiting for the ground to fall out from under him. When they pulled apart, Gianna rested her forehead against his. "You're not losing anything by letting someone in." "I'm starting to believe that," he whispered. Inside, the music swelled again. But out there, on the edge of a world he never thought he'd touch, Travis started to believe something he hadn't dared to in years. He wasn't surviving anymore. He was starting to live. Travis stood at the edge of the construction site, the wind tugging at the hem of his jacket, as the late afternoon sun dipped behind the skeletal frame of what would soon become his own repair shop. The sound of drills and hammers rang in the background, but all he could think about was how surreal it felt to see his name on the temporary sign staked into the dirt. Morgan Auto and Restoration opening soon. He hadn't wanted it at first. The land, the investment, the possibility. But Gianna hadn't offered it like a gift, she'd offered it like backing a partner. And somewhere between Noah's laughter echoing through the empty lot and the blueprint they'd spread across Gianna's dining room table, Travis had started to believe he could build something lasting, something that wasn't just survival. He glanced over his shoulder as a familiar car pulled up near the site office. Gianna stepped out, heels crunching lightly over gravel, a deep burgundy coat wrapped tight around her. She waved to the foreman as she walked toward him, a leather folder tucked beneath her arm. "You're early," he said, brushing sawdust from his sleeve. "I couldn't wait," she replied, handing him the folder. "The final permits came through this morning." He opened it, his eyes scanning the stamped pages filled with signatures and approvals. "It's really happening. I told you it would." He shut the folder and looked at her. "You always sound so sure." She reached up, brushing a speck of dust from his cheek. "Only about the things that matter." A sudden breeze swept through the site, and she stepped closer, her coat flaring slightly. Travis tucked the folder under his arm and wrapped an arm around her waist instinctively, steadying her. "I'm still figuring out how to breathe in all this," he admitted. "You don't have to figure it out alone." He looked down at her hand resting over his heart. "I've spent so long planning for the worst that I don't know what it feels like to trust something good." Gianna's voice was quiet but firm. "Then let this be the first time." Travis nodded slowly, his fingers tightening around her waist. "You're not afraid this will all fall apart?" "I've seen worse things come together," she said. "And you're not the kind of man who lets things fall without trying to catch them first." A call rang out from across the lot, one of the contractors asking about the placement of a workbench. Travis called back a quick answer, then turned back to Gianna. "You want to grab dinner after this?" "Somewhere normal, no menus with unpronounceable words." She raised an eyebrow. "You mean a place with laminated menus and waitresses named Carol?" "Exactly." She grinned. "Sounds perfect." They left the site an hour later, driving to a diner off an old state road. It had flickering neon signs and booths patched with duct tape, but the coffee was strong and the pancakes were the size of hubcaps. The waitress knew Travis by name and asked if Gianna was his pretty cousin from out of town. Gianna had laughed so hard she nearly knocked her water over. Later, when they walked out under a sky dusted with stars, Travis paused beside the truck, the keys dangling from his hand. "I've been thinking about something," he said. Gianna leaned against the side panel, her breath visible in the crisp air. "That usually means trouble." "I want to bring Noah here," he said. "To the new shop, let him see it. Let him feel like it's his too." Gianna's expression softened. "You should. I don't want him to grow up thinking the world only gives back when it's forced to. I want him to know it's okay to accept help, to dream without apology." She stepped in front of him and reached up, cupping his face. "Then show him what it looks like to start over without shame." He leaned into her touch. "You've changed everything." "No," she said, "you did that. I just showed up at the right time." The next weekend, Travis brought Noah to the site. The boy ran through the open framework, arms out like airplane wings, his laughter echoing across the unfinished walls. Travis pointed out where the office would go, where the tool wall would hang, and where they'd put a small corner with a couch and books, so Noah could hang out after school. Gianna stood back, watching them, her hands tucked into the pockets of her coat. When Travis turned to her, he didn't have to say anything. The look in his eyes said it all. That night, Travis cooked dinner for her and Noah at the house. Real food this time, chicken roasted with lemon and herbs, mashed potatoes, and the best attempt he could manage at sautéed green beans without burning them. They all ate at the rickety kitchen table, the one with the uneven leg and the scratch marks from Noah's toy cars. After Noah was asleep, curled up with his favorite dinosaur blanket, Gianna helped Travis wash the dishes. She handed him a wet plate and he dried it slowly. You ever think about staying? He asked. Her hands paused in the sink. Staying where? Here. With us? She turned toward him, water dripping from her hands. Are you asking me to move in? He set the plate down and reached for her hand. I'm asking if you want to build something permanent with me, with Noah. Gianna's eyes searched his. I don't want to be someone who drops in and disappears. You're not. You're already part of this. She nodded slowly, her voice thick. Then yes, I want that. Months passed quickly. The garage opened with a modest ribbon cutting. Gianna stood beside Travis as he flipped the sign from coming soon to open. Noah held the scissors with both hands, wearing a little red bow tie and grinning like it was Christmas morning. Clients came. Word spread. Travis hired 2 more mechanics by the end of the second month and scheduled community workshops on weekends for teens interested in learning trade skills. Gianna helped organize them, but never took credit. One Saturday, as they closed up shop for the day, Travis pulled her aside and handed her a small, wrapped box. What's this? She asked, eyebrows lifting. Something I've been working on between oil changes. She unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a gold pendant on a delicate chain, nothing flashy, just a single gear-shaped charm with an engraving on the back. It read, "Built to last." She looked up, eyes glassy. Is this your way of proposing? Not yet, he said. But it's my way of telling you I'm not going anywhere. She smiled, tears threatening. Then I guess I'll have to stick around. Later that night, when the 3 of them sat on the porch of the little house, Noah curled between them, the stars blinking above like quiet witnesses, Travis took her hand and held it tight. He didn't need a grand gesture. He'd already made the biggest one, letting her in. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't just fixing something broken. He was building something whole. The spring fundraiser for the children's ward was only 2 weeks away, and Gianna had somehow found herself chairing the entire event. She sat at her dining table, surrounded by swatches of linen, sample menus, and a laptop screen filled with spreadsheets. The scent of takeout noodles wafted through the air, long forgotten beside her as she adjusted the numbers again, trying to make room in the budget for a magician. Noah had begged her to book for the kids. She leaned back, rubbing her temples. I swear, if one more vendor tells me they're fully booked, I'm going to start doing balloon animals myself. From the kitchen, Travis called out, You'd make a terrifying clown. Gianna lifted her head as he walked into the room, carrying 2 mugs of tea. He handed her one and sat across the table, his sleeves pushed up and knuckles still dusted with grease from the shop. He glanced at the screen, then at her. You've been at this for 3 hours. Because if I don't figure out how to make this work, we'll end up with folding chairs and a tray of gas station cookies. And yet, I have a feeling it'll still be the most impressive event in the city. She gave him a look. You're biased, absolutely. But I'm also right, she sighed, letting her shoulders drop. It's not the event, I want it to matter. It already does. He reached over and lifted the laptop lid a little farther open, peeking at the spreadsheet. How short are you? About 8,000. And the silent auction prizes are decent, but nothing mind-blowing. Travis leaned back, tapping his fingers against the mug. What if I donated a full restoration package, labor included, parts covered? Gianna blinked. That's worth more than the entire shortfall. I've got a backlog, but I could move a few things around. Someone's going to want their dream car rebuilt. Maybe it'll bring in what you need. Her jaw tightened. You already give enough. You don't have to. I want to, he cut in. You're not the only one who wants this to matter. She stared at him, something quiet and overwhelmed flickering in her expression. I don't know how I got this lucky. You gave up looking for luck and started building something instead, he said. Now let me be part of that. She closed the laptop, pushed it aside, and stood. Come outside. Now. He followed her out into the backyard where the porch light cast a warm glow across the grass. She turned to face him, wrapping her arms around her waist. Will you dance with me? There's no music. You don't need music if you're already where you want to be. He stepped toward her and took her hand. They moved slowly, rhythmless and quiet, the sound of wind rustling the trees the only accompaniment. This isn't what I imagined, she said after a while. What I thought life would look like when I was younger. Better or worse, she tilted her head. More real, less polished, but it feels like mine. He rested his forehead against hers. That's because it is. She pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. Have you thought about what's next? For the shop, for us? He nodded. I think about it every time I see you with Noah, every time I hear your keys in the door. Every time I wake up and realize you're not a dream I'm going to lose. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Then what are we waiting for? Travis reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box. He didn't kneel. He didn't need to. This isn't about starting something. It's about continuing what we already are. I want you with me. At the shop, at home, at Noah's school plays, and at 3 a.m. when we're both too tired to think straight. I want all of it. Will you marry me? Gianna's breath caught. You already know the answer. He opened the box, a simple gold band with a subtle twist in the center, elegant and strong. She took it with shaking fingers and slid it on herself. Now it's real. A week later, they married in the backyard, under the string lights Noah had helped hang. There were no photographers, no press, no board members. Just family, friends, and a homemade arch built from salvaged wood and decorated with wildflowers. Miss Loretta officiated, beaming the entire time. Noah stood between them, holding both their hands as they said their vows. And when Travis promised to love both of them for the rest of his life, Noah's grip tightened. Afterward, they danced barefoot on the grass while the neighborhood kids ran circles around them with sparklers. Someone brought a guitar, and by the end of the night, even the quietest guests were singing along. Weeks passed, then months. The fundraiser shattered its goal, thanks in large part to Travis's restoration donation, which started a bidding war that lasted nearly 15 minutes. The magician showed up, Noah got to assist in a disappearing act, and Gianna cried seeing the joy on the kids' faces. The shop expanded again. Gianna moved her office closer to the community outreach wing, where she launched a free clinic staffed by volunteer nurses and new grads looking for experience. Travis taught weekend classes at the garage for kids interested in mechanics, and Noah started helping with tools, careful and proud. One evening, Travis came home to find Gianna in the kitchen, barefoot, her hair pulled up, stirring something on the stove. He walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She leaned back against him. Dinner's almost ready. We could skip it, she laughed. Noah will be hungry. He's on a play date. We've got a few hours. She turned to face him, her fingers sliding behind his neck. What did I do before you? You waited. You built your world, and then you let me in. And now, he kissed her gently. Now we get to build the rest of it. Together, they stood there in the warm light of their kitchen, hearts full, past quiet, future wide open. Outside, the porch light flickered once, then steadied.